Okay, so all right. Let's make sure.
The Nina, the Pinta, and the Santa Maria all flew flags with the Templar cross. He knew the natives would recognize this symbol and be peaceful. And they were at first. Sadly, the Europeans didn't return the favor. The Knights Templars say they were the first Europeans to visit the Americas. Fine. But can they prove it? They can. In 1898, Olaf Oman was clearing land on his farm in Minnesota when he stumbled upon a strange-looking rock. It was a tablet, about 30 inches tall and 16 inches wide. Carved in it were symbols that Oman didn't recognize. This tablet became known as the Kensington Runestone. Oman had it analyzed and translated. The inscription said it was left by Viking travelers in 1362. And this isn't a stone found on the coast. These Vikings were in the middle of the continent. Vikings in the New World, a century before Columbus. Now remember, according to Templar tradition, the first Vikings were Knights Templar. Then there's the Narragansett runestone, found in Rhode Island in 1939, also with Viking runes. Only 14 miles from where this runestone was discovered is Newport Tower. This is a mysterious 8-column structure. It's rumored to have been built by Vikings in the 1500s to track the solstices. The local museum says it's just the base of a lighthouse, but most locals disagree. As far back as the early 1800s, records and legends have given credit to Vikings. But why 8 columns? Why not just build it as one solid cylinder? Well, the answer leads us back to Gnosticism. The number 8 is highly significant to Gnostics. It represents completeness, a divine fullness. Remember earlier when I mentioned Jesus was initiated in the Great Pyramid? Well, there's a reason for that. If you watch the episode that we had about the pyramids,
Link below.
You'll remember that the Great Pyramid has 8 sides, not 4. To this day, Templars are initiated in the Great Pyramid.
Wait,
They
what?
believe that Egypt was one of the main sources of wisdom. Number 8 is highly significant to Gnostics. It represents completeness, a divine fullness. Remember earlier when I mentioned Jesus was initiated in the Great Pyramid? Well, there's a reason for that. If you watch the episode that we had about the pyramids,
Link below.
you'll remember that the Great Pyramid has 8 sides, not 4.
Wait, oh. Wait.
Was initiated in the Great Pyramid? Well, there's a reason for that. If you watch the
Yeah, let's
episode
see.
that we had about the pyramids,
Oh, okay, I see. The lines. They always have had lines like this. I just never thought of it as
Oh, I was gonna do this today and I never did it.
oh, those are what? Oh.
Drew the line and everything. I can cut it. You were sleeping, so I didn't cut it. I lost track.
We'll do it next weekend.
There's no rush.
Okay.
It's not structural. Can I?
If you want.
No, to me, it's your
Link
screen.
below.
you'll remember that the Great Pyramid has 8 sides, not 4. To this
Okay.
day, Templars are initiated in the Great Pyramid, and they believe that Egypt was one of the main sources of wisdom for the original Knights. And if you look, the number 8 is everywhere in Templar symbolism and architecture. The Maltese cross has 8 points, and was worn by a medieval order of knights that were attacked by fire. Today, it's the symbol of many firefighters.
A shout out to NYFD,
Oh, wow.
New York's bravest, eh?
Here, here.
Sorry.
Buildings like Temple Church and Ely Cathedral in England have octagonal features and the number 8 scattered all over the place. You only have to look at a few pictures of Rosslyn Chapel to start seeing the numbers showing up again and again. Evidence of the Knights Templar is everywhere. Now, we can't cover the Knights without mentioning the Freemasons. Countless rites, symbols, and beliefs connect the two groups almost seamlessly. Masons trace their origins back to the Temple of Solomon, just like the Templars. On Oak Island, Nova Scotia, a money pit was discovered in 1795, along with a Templar engraving. Since then, the Freemasons have been involved in almost every search for the lost treasure. Both Masonic symbols and Templar crosses are scattered across the island. The connection between the groups is so deep that they still see each other as brothers to this day. Another Templar connection is with Rosicrucianism, which heavily emphasizes the rose and the cross, both Templar symbols. But why? Why did the Templars spend so much time and money hiding their legacy? Well, the Knights Templar had a higher purpose. Their ultimate goal was to change the world for the better. They knew the ancient artifacts and knowledge would be a shock to society, but this knowledge was never meant to stay hidden. Eventually, the Knights will share the truth, and the truth might come out sooner than you think. Timothy Hogan is the current Grand Master of one of the Templar orders. He's on a mission to prepare the world to embrace their secrets. He insists that this knowledge is powerful enough to drastically alter our society as we know it in a positive way. Currently, all the Templar treasures are hidden in vaults around the world, 7 of which are here in the United States. And according to Hogan, the world is just about ready for their release. He says they'll do it in a way where no one government, no one religion will have complete access to the information. The release of information will be controlled to ensure everyone benefits. Because really, that's the Templars' entire purpose. It has been since the beginning. They wanted freedom for the people, physical freedom from the king, and spiritual freedom from the Pope. Unfortunately, it wasn't possible in the 14th century. But today, it could very well succeed. We're at a pivotal point in history where many feel like something is about to happen. They just don't know what. And I feel it too. Now, that might be nothing more than humanity's obsession with death and the end of the world. But maybe it's more than that. I think we all know that we can't go on living this way. Constant wars around the world, the hatred within our countries, the dishonesty of our leaders, the corruption of our institutions. It has to stop. Imagine how different our lives would be if we had access to ancient wisdom and technology. It would be a revolution. We could finally do what Nikola Tesla almost did, create free energy for the entire planet. It would take a while, but eventually, everyone on Earth could access healthy food, clean water, and live long, healthy lives free of illness and pain. It would be a revolution. Crime, poverty, and war wouldn't be necessary in a world of abundance, all due to the artifacts being held in secret vaults around the world. It would be a revolution. That is, if they're real. Today's story of the Knights Templar comes from one man, Timothy Hogan. He's the Grand Master of the Order of the Temple of Secret Initiates, the OTSI. He tells the story of ancient wisdom, alchemy, holy relics, and Atlantean artifacts. It's a fascinating story. But is it true? Well, there's nothing to debunk about his story, but there's also no physical evidence to prove it. So it really comes down to Mr. Hogan. Do you believe him? Now, you know what? I'm going to call him Tim because I know he's watching. Hi, Tim. This is the part of the episode where I tell you all the positive and negative things I can about the author of the story. But today we have to do things a little differently. Recently on live streams, I've been cold reading rough drafts of scripts for this channel. You probably assume this, but I have a team of writers, researchers, and contributors because, well, I need to. My cute 12-minute videos about weird animals have now become 40-minute documentaries. I'm just a guy who talks to a fish. I need help. Anyway, when I read the scripts live, I'm literally reading them for the first time along with you. Obviously, they're never final scripts. I rewrite everything I'm given. I also research and fact-check as much as I can. Oh yeah, then this one has to put in his jokes.
Nah, you'd be nothing without me.
Well,
Nothing!
but here's where things took a turn. First, after reading the draft, I was contacted by a viewer. Hi, Stan. Stan knows Timothy Hogan. He felt that the script was unfair to him, that it attacked him too personally. And you know what? I think Stan was right. You can still see the live read on the channel under the Live tab, but here's the short version. The script brought up Tim's divorce and a situation he had with a woman who was suffering from addiction and mental illness. She took over his Facebook page and posted wild stuff as him, like she was the reincarnation of Mary Magdalene, so that makes him Jesus, and things like that. And look, those things happened, and it's not a good look. But are they relevant to his story about the Knights Templar? Absolutely not. Just like my exes aren't relevant to the work I do now.
Yeah, you got some real pieces of work in your past.
I know.
Some real pieces of work, I tell you.
I know. I went through some rough patches.
Your wife is a saint.
I can't deny that.
Resource.
But that's the point. Tim's personal life is just that. Personal, and I don't really like gossip. Okay, I like gossip, but I don't do it on the channel.
Well, you do it on the live streams.
Okay, that's fine. Let me get through this. So Tim's personal life is irrelevant,
A
but
class
his professional life
representing
regarding
a
his work
virtual
with and
network
as a Knights
belongs
Templar
with
is
instance
relevant.
operations that can be performed on it. If you have a resource identifier, you can construct a virtual network resource. So from an instance of an ARM client using get virtual network resource method. Otherwise, you can get one from its parent resource group resources using resource group resources. Okay.
Tim has detractors, people that don't like him, people that don't believe him. I asked the researcher where she found these people.
They're on Reddit, aren't they?
They're on Reddit.
Oh, they hate you on Reddit, too.
Oh, they don't love you either.
Fair enough.
Tim's detractors are what seem to be members of different orders of the Knights Templar or other fraternal organizations. It's actually hard to follow if you're not in that world. Now, people often ask me if I'm a Mason or in groups like that, and I'm not. And I joke that I'm not a joiner. I don't play well with others, because that's true. So when people talk about Grand Masters and seventh degrees and secret handshake grips and all that stuff, I don't get it. I don't impugn it, but I really don't get it. But the people that are in those groups do get it. And the Grand Masters and seventh degrees and secret handshake grips and all that stuff, I don't get it. I don't impugn it, but I really don't get it. But the people that are in those groups do get it, and they take it very seriously. There's been infighting with these various orders for 1,000 years, and it's still happening. This board voted Tim off, or that group wanted him out. He didn't like what another group was doing, so he left, that kind of thing. Are the internal politics of these fraternal groups relevant to his story of the Knights Templar? To me, no. There are people who call Tim a fraud, that he makes claims that aren't true. Well, I'm going to read you a few of his claims, and these are Tim's words in an email to me. Laugh it up. It's going to happen to you too. It was also suggested that I say I'm a descendant of a Revolutionary War Templar, which is actually true. My great-grandfather 7 generations back was General Joseph Warren of the Revolutionary War. True. He initiated Paul Revere, and he helped plan the Boston Tea Party. He was an alchemist and a doctor, a Templar Grand Commander for the region, and his relationship with Paul Revere was largely based on studying alchemy. Paul Revere was a silversmith. That's true. My grandfather Hugh Warren also taught metallurgy at Denver University. My great-grandfather James Baden Warren also knew metallurgy, and he was the Grand Lecturer for the Masonic Grand Lodge of Pennsylvania, and he was a Grand Commander of the Knights Templar. True. My father was Stephen D. Hogan, mayor of Aurora, Colorado, and had been active in politics my entire life. He was also a Templar. There are highways and convention centers named after him in Colorado. True.
We continue covering Colorado First at 5, and we travel to Aurora, where the city hosted a groundbreaking event for the Stephen Hogan Parkway. Project closed about a 2-mile gap between the existing 6th Parkway on the west and E470 on the east.
But even though he always had politics going on, he always tried to make time for us individually and to make us feel special.
I ran for mayor after he passed away in a special election and lost by 2 votes. Anyhow, my family on both sides had been Templars, and I was first knighted into the tradition at 8 years old as a page. Now, I've seen these claims challenged online, but everything I could find says that Tim is telling the truth about his family. There are a few other criticisms of him online that he addressed in his emails to me. I don't find a lot of it relevant. It's mostly personal, but Google him and decide for yourself. Here's where I stand. I've watched and listened to interviews with Tim that go back about 10 years. I've read 2 of his books. Well, skimmed. I watched his entire series on Gaia, which is fascinating, by the way. Tim Hogan has an encyclopedic knowledge of the history of the Knights Templar. Names, dates, meanings of words, ancient rituals,
Okay.
everything connecting the Knights to
Let's
ancient
make our
Egypt,
address
various
space.
pharaohs and kings and popes. Tim knows it all. And if you're into this subject, listen to one of his interviews. He's knowledgeable and riveting. And when we finally get the studio finished here, Tim agreed to come in and talk to me and have his claims challenged. But what about his claims? Well, from what I gather, and this is only my opinion, Tim will lean into information depending on the situation. Meaning, if he's being interviewed by an historian or someone focused on hard facts, Tim sticks to the facts. He'll bring up the theories and label them as such. Legend says, or people say, that sort of thing. If he's in a forum where the wild claims are expected, he'll lean into those. Now look, I love Gaia. I'm a paid subscriber. But everybody on that channel believes everything. And a lot of it is bunk. A lot of it. But Gaia viewers want the wild stuff.
What was Atlantis? Was it a place? A culture? And what happened to it? I'm Timothy Hogan, Grand Master of the Knights Templar.
And I'm Scott Wolter, a forensic geologist and a Knights Templar. And this is Mysteries of the Knights Templar.
I don't think Tim believes every theory he discusses. I think he's intelligent and entertaining, and I think he caters to the audience. Now, at first, that might sound dishonest, but it's exactly what I do here. I tell the story, the legend, the myth as it's meant to be told. Then we break it down together. I'm not trying to lie to you. I'm trying to entertain you. I'm not a journalist. I talk to a fish. We do this for fun. Now, there are some bold claims that Tim sticks by, like the vaults containing the arks and ossuaries of remains. He says these are real, he's seen them, and the information is coming out. The purpose of the show on Gaia is to, in Tim's words, bring people up to speed. Okay, that's fair, but that's not evidence. And bold claims need hard evidence. I'm going to be very honest. One of my most loyal patrons was upset about the Mary Magdalene, Jesus, John part of the story. That's the ossuary, the bones. He felt it was insulting to Christianity and I should leave it out. But it's such an explosive claim, I needed to tell you about it. If I left it out, I'd feel like a liar and a coward. That said, I did check with other people of faith in my community. They said it's part of the story, leave it in. And if you followed this channel for a while, you know that I greatly respect religion and people of faith.
Well, so I mentioned the arcs. Accordingly, we also have ossuaries with the bones of certain holy figures that we're hanging on to.
By the way, I've only seen Tim discuss that story about the bones once, and he was reluctant to do so. He knows it's touchy.
Well, okay. Well, you just can't get away with without naming names. Ossuaries of whom?
They would be referred to as the Holy Families. So it would be, John the Baptist, Jesus, Mary Magdalene, and their kids.
He said he'll allow DNA testing, but he was also very clear that he had no intention of insulting anyone's faith.
One of the biggest hurdles that we're trying to get over with all of this is that we're not trying to invalidate anybody's beliefs. We're just trying to say that there might be a little bit more to the story.
And I believe him on that point. Tim's been accused of doing so many interviews and giving so many lectures because he wants to sell books and get people to watch his show. Does that mean he's lying? No, he's promoting. Graham Hancock is everywhere when he has a book out. He wants people to buy it and read it. So what? I'm a huge fan. I buy all of Graham's books and watch all of his shows and interviews. I've seen every minute of him on Rogan. I don't have to believe everything Graham says, but I enjoy the material. Same with Tim Hogan. You don't have to believe his story to enjoy it. Stories of Atlantean treasure, free energy, and ancient documents, that's nothing new. Those legends have been around forever. Now they may be true, but until we have physical evidence, they are still legends. So, is Tim just jumping on the Atlantis bandwagon, or is the link between the Knights Templar and Atlantis real? Are there really underground vaults hidden around the world with ancient technology that could rid us of poverty and war? The arks, the artifacts, the emerald tablet, the mana, the bones, are they real? Well, I need to see them. But if you choose to believe the story without physical proof, that's okay too. I'm not trying to persuade you one way or another. Tim insists that the Templars will reveal these artifacts very soon. If there are no artifacts, why make that promise? When he talks about the divine in each of us, he seems to believe it. But that could be my own bias, because I also believe that the divine, God, the universal energy, the whatever you call it, I believe that is in each of us. And I don't think that belief has to contradict anyone's faith. That's why it's called faith. If Tim Hogan is telling the truth, humanity's future might not be as doomed as we think. And maybe the catalyst, the change, the evidence we need is hiding in a vault right now, right beneath our feet. I don't know if it is, but I truly hope so.
Okay, but that's that.
Thank you so much for hanging out with me today. My name is AJ, that's Hecklefish.
Hey, you don't happen to have a mana guy, do ya?
I don't.
Yeah.
This has been the Y-Files. If you had fun or learned anything, do us a favor, like, subscribe, comment, share. Those buttons really help us out. And like most topics we cover on the channel, today's was recommended by you. So if there's a story you'd like to see or learn more about, go to theyfiles.com/tips. And remember, the Y-Files is also a podcast. Twice a week, I post deep dives into the stories we cover here on the channel. I also post episodes that wouldn't be allowed on the channel. They're called Unredacted. The podcast is called The Y-Files Operation Podcast, and it's available everywhere you get your podcasts. Now, if you need more Y-Files in your life, check out our Discord. There are over 40,000 people on there 24/7, and they talk about the same weird stuff that we do. It's a great community, it's a lot of fun, and it's free to join. Now, the best way to keep track of all the stuff that's happening with the channel is the yfiles.com/cal. That's our production calendar. There you'll see what episodes are being posted and when, the names of the podcasts, when we're live streaming, all that stuff is there. A special thanks to our patrons who make this channel possible. Every episode of the Y-Files is dedicated to our Patreon members. I don't deserve the support that you give, but I'm truly grateful for it. Without you, there'd be no channel. Now, if you'd like to support the channel, consider becoming a member on Patreon. For as little as $3 a month, you get access to perks like videos early with no commercials, access to merch only available to members, plus you get 2 private live streams every week just for you. My camera's on, your camera's on, if you want. It's a lot of fun and it's a great perk. Another great way to support the channel is grab something from the Y-File store.
Grab yourself a Hecklefish t-shirt or a coffee mug that you can stick your fist in, along with a beverage of your choice. Or grab a hoodie with my face on it, or one of these squeezy stuffed animal tugging, Hecklefish tugging fish toy dolls.
And that's gonna do it. Until next time, be safe, be kind, and know that you are appreciated.
Area 51, a secret code inside the Bible said I would. I love my UFOs and paranormal fun, as well as music, so I'm singing it like I should. But then another conspiracy theory becomes the truth, my friends, and it never ends. No, it never ends. I feel the crap I got stuck inside Mel's hole with MK Ultra. I'm being only too aware. Did Stanley Kubrick fake the moon landing alone on a film set, or were the shadow people there? The Roswell aliens just fought the smiling man, I'm told, and his name was Cold. And I can't believe I'm dancing with the fish. Hecklefish on Thursday nights with AJ2, and the Wi-Fi's have the beat all through the night. All I ever wanted was to just hear the truth, so the Wi-Fi's have the beat all through the night. The Mothman sightings and the solar storm still come to Augusta, the secret city underground.
Another blue
Mysterious number
state
stations,
Exodus.
planets Earth to.
The one thing that we're not going to do is
Oh,
do what the Biden administration did and tell the American people they don't know how
there's
they
sugar
feel.
supplements.
They are traumatized, and over the Biden inflation, we have slowed inflation, and we are working very hard to bring it down. Kristen, I can tell you that the Council on Economic Advisors has a study. You know the best way to bring your inflation rate down? Move from a blue state to a red state. Blue state inflation is 0.5% higher, and that is because they don't deregulate, they keep prices up, energy is higher.
Meanwhile,
reveal that more people are moving out of Maryland than moving into the state.
Yeah, so the state comptroller's office says Maryland has been losing about 40,000 residents on average each year to states with more affordable housing.
Lionel Donovan shows us
to her life. Home for
to me.
20.
Oh, shit.
They don't deregulate, they keep prices up, energy is higher.
Meanwhile,
reveal that more people are moving out of Maryland than moving into the state.
Yeah, so the state comptroller's office says Maryland has been losing about 40,000 residents on average each year to states with more affordable housing.
Lionel Donovan shows us how the people who are sticking around are making do.
Finding affordable housing is an ongoing problem in Rockville, but it's not a problem that's unique to the city. Maryland's comptroller recently released a report that reveals that between 2000 and 2022, the number of households in Maryland that are able to earn enough income to afford a median-price home has dropped by more than 25%. Today, I spoke with a Marylander who's had to leave Montgomery County to find a more affordable place to live, but she says she might not be done moving.
It just really meant a lot to me, you know, to be able to say, you know, I'm back here in Rockville.
But this past February, Sherry Cook had to leave the city her family called home for generations. The reason? The price of housing just kept going up. And as a furloughed federal worker, she says the recent upheavals from D.C. only added more uncertainty to her life.
Not knowing how much it would possibly go up was the scary part.
Right.
And so, yeah, after things went up the way they did, it was a better choice to just go ahead and leave.
She now lives in Bowie, but her story is quickly becoming more common in Maryland. A recent report from the state's comptroller revealed that between 2010 and 2023, Maryland lost a total of 2.3 million residents to other states.
Boy. So we got to talk about another blue state that is experiencing a mass exodus because of, you guessed it, high taxes, regulation, unaffordability, cost of living up, housing unaffordable, and Democrats that are running this state have no real solutions for how to lower the cost of living in order to keep people in the state. And that's what we got to talk about, because we got to go out to Maryland, which is being run by Democrats led by Wes Moore, who is one of these Democrats that a lot of people speculate could possibly run in 2028, even though he claims that he's not going to. We're going to see. But currently his state is experiencing a mass exodus due to the fact that it's just not affordable to live there anymore. Okay, people are going where everybody's going, which is to the South. For a more affordable lifestyle.
Well, 7 News is learning more about the impact of rising housing prices on Maryland's economy. Kelly Lynn is live in Laurel to break down the findings of a new report that shows millions of people are leaving the state to move to more affordable areas.
That's right. Before the pandemic, we saw wealthier, older residents leaving the state of Maryland to go to other states, but that is changing. I want to go to that 78-page state report because it does provide the details that you need to know. Okay. It shows that between 2010 and 2023, about 2.3 million residents left the state, and only 2 million moved into the state during the same time period, many of them going to states like Florida, Pennsylvania, the Carolinas, Texas, Virginia, and Delaware. Before the pandemic, high-income retirees were leaving Maryland to get to a state that offered a better climate and tax savings, but now there's been an increase in younger and lower to middle-income residents leaving the state. The researchers believe that housing affordability and cost of living are the primary factors influencing the migration trend. Maryland renter Rachel Rollins has considered relocating to another state because of the high housing costs.
I am contemplating whether I'm going to move further out, just to be able to take advantage of some of the housing, more affordable housing that they may offer.
And in September, Maryland Governor Wes Moore did sign an executive order to increase the amount of affordable housing in the state. It calls for improving the use of state-owned land as well as speeding up the permitting process and creating a new state housing ombudsman. If you'd like to read more about that, you can go to our homepage. Live in Laurel, Kelly Lynn, 7 News.
All right, y'all, quick break from the show because this is important. Look, we talk a lot here about standing up for yourself, not letting big corporations, the government, or anybody else push you around. But what happens when real life hits, car accidents, workplace injuries, medical mistakes, and suddenly you're the little guy going up against massive insurance company? Well, that's where Morgan & Morgan comes in. There's a reason reporters never run out of breaking news. Just like there's a reason Morgan & Morgan is America's largest injury law firm. They've recovered over $25 billion for 500,000 clients with more than 1,000 lawyers nationwide, and they're built on one simple idea. For the people. That means when you're hurt, you don't pay them a dime up front. They only get paid if you win. And trust me, these big companies have teams of big lawyers working against you. You need somebody just as powerful fighting for you. When you hire Morgan & Morgan, it's like hiring a legal army that has your back. If you're injured because of somebody else's negligence, you deserve to be paid. So if you've been hurt in an accident, at work, or anywhere in between, don't roll the dice alone. You can check out Morgan & Morgan. Their fee is free unless they win. You can start your claim now by clicking the link in the description or by scanning the QR code on screen from your phone's camera. Because at the end of the day, protecting yourself and your family isn't just common sense. It's conservative values in action. Yeah, so you see that, you heard that. Same story that we hear all the time, right? New York, California, these blue states, it's the same thing. People are leaving. They're leaving these blue states in droves because it's unaffordable. Crime is out of control. You have mass illegal immigration in these states. There are a lot of reasons why people are leaving. They're fleeing. And the crazy part about it is that Democrats, instead of deregulating, lowering taxes, embracing supply-side economics in order to incentivize more affordable housing, no, they don't do that. They double and triple down on the same policies that made the state unaffordable in the first place. And now you have these woke activist groups who are pushing Democrats to make the problem worse because they're now pushing for $25 an hour minimum wage. That's what they're pushing for. That's what they want. Okay, there is a ballot initiative that they want to get support for in order to increase the minimum wage to $25 an hour because nobody can afford to live in Maryland. So again, these activists want Democrats to make the problem worse. So not only are the residents leaving because it's unaffordable, right? Now you're going to have businesses, small businesses, they're going to be leaving because it's going to be unaffordable. They can't afford to operate in the state. That's exactly what's about to happen. And that's why there's a lot of fallout and a lot of pushback from small businesses threatening to leave, saying, hey, we're going to flee, right? We're going to flee like everybody else if this $25 an hour minimum wage actually gets passed. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get into this.
Live from WBFF in Baltimore, this is Fox 45 News at 10.
Thank you for joining us tonight. I'm Kai Jackson.
And I'm Maxine Stryker. Tonight, critics are ripping into Maryland's current financial system, saying the state's policies are systemically driving people out of the state and making life more expensive for those who stay.
The American Legislative Exchange ranked Maryland among the bottom 10 U.S. states in economic outlook and performance as well. And just this year, Maryland lost its AAA bond rating for the first time in 50 years. The state is also looking at a nearly $1.5 billion fiscal deficit for budget year 2027 after approving $1.6 billion in taxes and fees to offset last year's deficit.
It's always the same thing. Every time. Every single time. Every time. Large deficits, more taxes, right? They never cut spending. They never deregulate. They never do anything that actually helps. They just make the problem worse, right? And then the next year, they're back in the same situation. They raise taxes. Oh, next year, we have a deficit. Lo and behold, well, maybe because those taxes are driving away businesses, driving away residents. So what happens is that they actually get less tax revenue because of the tax increases, which means next year they got to come back and they got to figure out, okay, well, how do we cover this deficit? Because the tax increases that we did the previous year didn't work, right? So they're back in the same situation. And they just never learned. It's hilarious. It's comical at this point.
Residents say they're struggling to stay afloat.
The outlook is a lot worse for fiscal 27 than it was at the end of session. About $1.5 billion deficit.
I've heard of so many people able to leave here because of the taxes, my husband especially. Everything's taxed more and more and more every year, but we love living here.
Why?
Gubernatorial candidate Ed Hale is taking aim at the state's recent fee increases at the MVA, in some cases costing drivers hundreds of dollars. Fox 45's Rebecca Pryor has those comments and Governor Moore's message in just a moment. But we're also looking into a push to raise the state's minimum wage to $25 an hour, making it the highest in the country. But the proposal is met with resistance, including from business owners who say the policy will force more of them to shut their doors. Fox 45's Jeff Abel begins our team coverage with this debate surrounding Maryland's minimum wage. Jeff.
Well, supporters began this week spreading across the state and launching a petition drive, hoping to raise the minimum wage from $15 to $25 an hour. But if it happens, many small businesses predict the impact will be catastrophic. At Max's Tap House in Fells Point, beer was on their lips, but wages were on their minds.
I mean, people are going to lose their jobs over this.
At issue is a hike in the minimum wage. Proponents are proposing raising the current $15 an hour minimum wage to $25 an hour. Workers who currently earn tips would be eligible for the higher minimum wage, too. Proponents insist the current $15 minimum wage is hardly a livable wage.
The cost of living is high, and people are struggling to pay, for their homes, for food, for childcare.
It's not sustainable. Small businesses cannot do this.
Owner Gail Furman believes the proposed hike in minimum wage could prove to be catastrophic for many small businesses.
If I have to pay an employee $25 an hour, it means I have to dramatically increase my pricing. When I do that, it's not sustainable. To buy a beer at Max's, you're going to have to pay $15 to $20 to buy a beer.
Wow. $15 to $20 to buy a beer. Unbelievable. Absolutely unbelievable. Welcome to the blue states, right? Welcome to Democrat-run states. $25 for a beer. Oh, man. Incredible. Absolutely incredible. But she's right. $25 an hour? Really? And again, as conservatives, we joke all the time, right? Why not $50 an hour? Why not $100 an hour? But, legitimately, these people really think that, that makes sense, right? $30 an hour, $50 an hour, $100 an hour. And it's just so funny because it's like these policies, they're the reason why the state is so expensive in the first place, right? These jobs are not supposed to be living wage jobs. I'm sorry, okay? Progressives live in Cocoa Puffs world. They live in, they just live in a world that doesn't exist. And it's probably because they're economically illiterate, right? That is why. Every job can't be a living wage job. And the reason why is because a lot of these jobs they're talking about, these are not high-skilled jobs. That means that when it comes to labor, there's a large supply of individuals who can actually do that job. And because of that, that means that on the free market, the wage, right, the actual fair wage is not going to be that high because there's a high supply compared to the demand for those workers, okay? That's just the reality situation. If you want a higher wage, then what you need to do is that you need to apply yourself. You need to learn a skill that is in high demand with lower supply of workers, right? You need to learn a skill and move towards a career where, okay, I'm going to be able to get paid more because my skill set is in demand, right? And there's lower supply. In today's world, okay, let me start giving people, I have to start giving people advice, right? People need to utilize AI to their advantage, right? You can literally sit down and tell the AI, right? This is my situation.
I want to
Here are
learn.
my goals. This is what I want to accomplish. And you can literally go over how to actually accomplish those things, right? If you want to learn a skill, if you want to get into a trade, if you want to get into a certain career, you can literally learn how to do that. You can walk through how to do it with AI, right? Any problem that you have in life, right? Any problem that you're trying to solve, right? If you're having
It's
issues
your
figuring out your
helper.
budget, figuring out, what goals you want and what you should invest in, how to save money, it doesn't matter. You can literally use AI to figure all these things out. We live in a world where a lot of the problems that we have is like you have help, you have resources, you have knowledge, you can apply yourself and you can put yourself in a better situation. You can navigate life's challenges a lot better than people used to be able to do. So to me, it's like, if you're in this situation where you're like, oh, well, I want to get paid a living wage, it's like, okay, well, apply yourself, right? Read, learn, gain skills, right? And that's how you do it. But the solution is not for the government to come in and say, see, this job that on the free market does not demand $25 an hour, right? You must now get paid $25 an hour. That is what leads to job losses. That is what leads to less economic activity. And ultimately, businesses will leave, prices will go up, and you're not going to get your quote unquote living wage because, again, the prices are just going to go up in order to compensate for the living wage. And you're probably going to lose your job because businesses are just not going to be able to operate with a $25 an hour minimum wage. We saw it out in California. The same individuals in the restaurant industry, the fast food industry, that demanded a $25 an hour minimum wage, something like that, right? Something crazy. A lot of them end up losing their jobs. And they was like, well, I didn't know I was going to lose my job, right? It's like, well, yeah, a lot of businesses can't operate with that minimum wage. That's just the reality of the situation. What people got to understand, what leftists don't understand, what socialists don't understand is that competition is human nature. You have to compete. There are way too many people in our society that want above average results for mediocre effort, right? You can't put in mediocre effort and then expect above average results. That's just not how it works, okay? You have to be better than mediocre, okay? You got to work. You got to apply yourself. You got to learn. That's just the reality. If you want more out of life, you have to work for it. Nothing is handed to you, okay? That's just how it is.
Never in my lifetime would I think that that would be the case.
It sounds great in theory. It's great politically for politicians, but it will hurt small businesses. It will hurt Main Street, and ultimately it will hurt workers.
Supporters have now launched a statewide petition drive, hoping to get the proposal on next year's ballot. But opponents point to other states which have seen dramatic hikes in their minimum wages, and there were dire consequences.
Look at California. They raised their minimum wage to $20 an hour just for fast food restaurants, and it is documented that it led to an increase in job losses and more automation.
The people that they quote unquote say they're helping, they're hurting. Because every time the minimum wage gets increased, all the prices around it have to go up in order to cover the additional increase. So people who are at a minimum wage are struggling, again, even though they're making more money.
Well, organizers need more than 100,000 signatures to get the measure on the ballot, but if it happens, Maryland would have the highest minimum wage of any other state in the country. We're live tonight. Jeff Abel, Fox 45 News.
Wow. These are going to be the same people that are going to be shocked when bread costs $15 a loaf, eggs are $20 a dozen. You already got beer. It's going to be $20, $25 a glass, right? Just to get a beer at a night out, $30, right? For one beer. And then they're going to be running the red states. But I'm going to tell you, I don't want these people running the red states no more, right? I don't want them. Stay where you're at. Deal with the consequences of your vote. Deal with the consequences of the leadership that you put into office. Deal with the consequences of the policies that you supported. Because ultimately, this comes down to the voters. You liberals voted for, or they have the opportunity to vote for a $25 an hour minimum wage. If you vote for that, again, don't come to red states, right? Suffer the consequences of your vote, right? That's what you need to do. We are full in the South. We're full. A lot of these individuals, they vote for this nonsense in blue states, and then they want to come to the South. They want to come to red states in order to get away from the consequences of what they supported. And then they start voting blue, no matter who, in red states, and they want to mess our states up. No, I don't want my state to be messed up, right? I don't want the South to be messed up by these individuals. Stay where you are at. Suffer the consequences and vote correctly, right? Put the right people in office, get the Democrats out of office, and maybe, just maybe, you will get the results that you're looking for. But as long as they continue to vote for these lunatics, this is what's going to happen. This is what's going to happen. They're going to have to deal with this until they figure out that who they vote for, what they vote for, the policies that they support, that is the reason why they're suffering, right? And until then, they just got to deal with it. We're full. We're about to start charging a tariff, right? We're about to start charging a tax to all these individuals trying to move to red states. We're full, okay? We're full. Let me know what you guys think. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. Most importantly, share a Black conservative perspective. Peace.
NYPD would be the ones to do so.
In that press conference with President Trump, a reporter asked you whether you believe that President Trump is in fact a fascist, a word that you've used in the past. You were about to answer, then President Trump sort of jumped in and he said, quote, "That's okay, you can just say yes. It's easier than explaining it." So, Mr. Mayor-elect, just to be very clear, do you think that President Trump is a fascist?
And after President Trump said that, I said yes. And
so you do.
And that's something that I've said in the past. I say it today. And I think what I appreciated about the conversation that I had with the president was that we were not shy about the places of disagreement, about the politics that has brought us to this moment. And we also wanted to focus on what it could look like to deliver on a shared analysis of an affordability crisis for New Yorkers.
You've also said in the past that President Trump has engaged in a, quote, attack on our democracy. You've called him a despot. Do you still believe President Trump is a threat to the democracy?
Everything that I've said in the past, I continue to believe. And that's the thing that I think is important in our politics, is that we don't shy away from where we have disagreements, but we understand what it is that brings us to that table. Because I'm not coming into the Oval Office to make a point or make a stand. I'm coming in there to deliver for New Yorkers. And a few weeks ago, I was asked by a reporter 3 words to describe myself. I said, New York City. And that's what animated that conversation. How do we deliver for the people of New York City?
I think that some of your supporters would be curious to know, you say you stand by your past statements that, yes, he's a threat to the democracy. How do you square working with someone who you still think is a threat to the democracy?
I think working for the people of New York City demands that you work with everyone and anyone, and that you always look to find those areas of agreement while not overlooking the places of disagreement. And I think this was something that came up in our meeting. We spoke about immigration. We spoke about the fact that in New York City, we have sanctuary city policies that allow for the city to work with the federal government on around 170 serious crimes. The concern for so many New Yorkers comes about anything beyond that. And I spoke about the importance of us being able to protect New Yorkers, and some of the incidents that we see, they do not do that.
Boy. So we got to talk about the mainstream liberal media reaction to the meeting between President Trump and Zohran Mamdani. Okay, 2 politicians on the opposite side of the political spectrum. The liberal media was shocked by the fact that the meeting was cordial, that they didn't seem to hate each other, at least not publicly. We don't know what was said behind closed doors. But Zohran is coming out and basically saying that he still thinks that President Trump is a fascist, right? And I don't think that President Trump really takes Zohran too seriously when it comes to that. But the reality is that from a political perspective, Zohran needs Trump a lot more than Trump needs Zohran, right? And that is the reality of this meeting that a lot of leftists are missing, because they're trying to make it seem as if President Trump was bending the knee to Zohran, or that Zohran somehow, some way got over Trump. And I don't think that that's actually the case, right? I think that President Trump is using Zohran Mamdani and not necessarily the other way around, because President Trump is the power player in that relationship. And we're already starting to figure out that Zoran is basically bending the knee to the power players, the real power players already, because he's folded on the socialist takeover of the Democrat Party. And he also doesn't seem to be confident that he can convince Hochul to tax the rich in order to pay for his socialist utopia. Take a look.
Two more quick questions. If Democrats win the midterms, do you want to see Leader Jeffries become the Speaker of the House?
Yes.
Okay. That was a firm, quick answer. So you leave plenty of time for my final answer. You have said that you want to raise $9 billion in new taxes, increasing taxes on the wealthy, on businesses, in order to fund your key policies like universal child care, which you mentioned. You would need Governor Kathy Hochul to be on board with this. You'd need her signature. She has never publicly committed to increasing taxes. I know you just spoke with her. Mr. Mayor-elect, did Governor Hochul commit to you that she will support and sign on to your plan to increase taxes?
The governor and I had a productive conversation, and what we both committed to is working together for the affordability agenda. And one thing I appreciate of the many about Governor Hochul is that she's been focused not just on affordability, but specifically on universal child care for quite some time. And now is the time to bring a partner forward in City Hall. And I've said plainly and openly that I believe that these are two tax proposals that make sense, increasing the personal income taxes on New Yorkers making $1 million or more by just 2%, increasing the top corporate tax rate to match that of New Jersey. And what I've also said is more important than how we fund something is that we fund something. And if there are additional or alternate revenue streams to do so, I will accept them and I will celebrate them, because the most important thing is to actually deliver for the New Yorkers who right now can't even conceive of having a family in New York City because of how expensive we've made childcare across the 5 boroughs.
Well, and your entire agenda is incredibly ambitious: universal child care, free buses, among other things, lowering rent. Can you deliver on this agenda without Governor Hochul agreeing to increase taxes?
Well, I'm thankful that I'm not going to have to engage in the hypothetical, because I am confident of the two of us working together to deliver on this agenda and ensure that finally, and this goes back to just that portrait of FDR, we look at what politics has been in the past. It has been there in the moments of such transformation, meeting the scale of the crisis. We can do that again.
So just yes or no, you think she'll raise taxes?
I think she'll work with me to deliver on affordability. I think raising taxes make the most sense. If there's any alternative that raises the same amount of money, I'm open.
All right.
Yeah, so I want you guys to read between the lines here, right? Because you got to pay attention to what people do, not necessarily what they say, but what they say can tell you a lot, or what they don't say can also tell you a lot as well, too. What he's doing, he's meeting with Trump. He's already backed Hakeem Jeffries. Like, that's an action. He's saying, yeah, Hakeem should be leader, while at the same time, the far left base is saying, no, we want to get rid of Hakeem Jeffries, right? He's backing Hakeem Jeffries. He represents what is supposed to be the socialist takeover of the Democrat Party, and he's already bending the knee to the same individuals, the same people that he ran his campaign on taking down. Also on top of that, he's non-committal about whether or not he can get Hochul to raise taxes so that he can fund his socialist utopia. Basically, what Zoran is finding out, again, is that he ain't got that much power, right? And I think what is happening is that he understands that, well, I need President Trump to not defund New York City, right? I need Hakeem Jeffries to also not undermine my agenda using his influence in New York. He needs Kathy Hochul to play ball when it comes to trying to find a way for him to do basically anything that he's trying to do, all of his free stuff, right? This guy clearly is weak, right? He is weak, okay? And I think leftists are already starting to pick up on this, at least to a certain extent, because they're not happy about Zoran folding on things like, for example, taking out Hakeem Jeffries.
Mamdani also appeared to discourage his fellow Democratic Socialists of America member on Monday. Quote, I believe that there are many ways right here in New York City to both deliver on an affordability agenda and take on the authoritarian administration in the White House, Mamdani told reporters of ASE. Ocasio-Cortez told Axios during a brief interview at the U.S. Capitol that she was not aware that ASE was challenging Jeffries, but she added, I certainly don't think a primary challenge to the leader is a good idea right now. Ocasio demurred on other races, declining to weigh in on whether she would support New York City Comptroller Brad Lander if he runs against Representative Dan Goldman. Ossie filed paperwork with the Federal Election Commission on Monday to run for Jeffries' district, which covers portions of Brooklyn. He said in a statement he is exploring a run because Democratic leadership is not only failing to effectively fight back against Donald Trump, they have also failed to deliver a vision that we can all believe in. Jeffries, who had previously repeatedly dismissed the notion of an Ossie primary challenge, told reporters at a press conference Monday, "Come on in, the water is warm." So here's why this is disappointing. This guy who's running against Hakeem Jeffries, Zoran, that was you. That was you. You were running against the golden child. You were running against the establishment's man. You were running against Andrew Cuomo. You also ran against, Eric Adams, for example. So with this sort of mindset that you're now applying to this guy, people applied it to you, and they said, what are you doing? We already have our candidates. We already have Eric Adams. We already have Andrew Cuomo. They represent the Democratic brand. Like, just let them cook. But you said, no, it's not good enough. They're not good enough. They don't fight Trump. They don't deliver on actual leftist values. We're going to stand up and actually represent something, and we're going to change the Democratic Party, and we're going to have our Democratic Tea Party moment. And so people said that about you, right? But you didn't listen to them, and then you went on to win. AOC, this was you. You were this guy, except you did it against Joe Crowley, who was like next in line to be a Democratic leader, and you beat him, and I'm fucking happy that you did. Now, look, I get it. Some people will say, well, steelman their argument. Okay, to steelman their argument, they feel like in order to get any of our agenda done, we need the buy-in from the more centristy of the people from within our coalition, from within our caucus, from within our party. So they can't feel like we're their enemy as we're trying to like get stuff done with them right now. And so basically the argument is like, hey, I think we can convince Jeffries and others to go along with our agenda, but he's only going to do that if I show support for him over the person fucking running against him, right? Like, that's the mindset. Here's why that falls apart, though. AOC is definitely either going to run for the Senate or run for president. So you're not even going to be in the House that much longer. Like, you're not. So why not just tell the truth? Why not just say this guy sucks at fighting Trump? Why not just say he's bought by fucking AIPAC and it's time to have a real Democratic Tea Party and have a bunch of AOCs and Zoran Mamdanis get elected? Why not just tell the truth?
The reason why is because you idiots have been hoodwinked, led astray, run amok once again, right? And you don't understand the reality of politics. That Zoran and AOC as well too, they do not have any real power, right? That's the reality. Is that they still have to kiss up to the people with actual power in order to do anything, right? They have to be allowed to do the things that they want to do, which means they're going to have to make some concessions, okay? Zoran is going to have to make some concessions to Hochul. Zoran is going to have to make some concessions to Hakeem Jeffries. Zoran is going to have to make some concessions to Trump. Do you think that the guy who went and met with President Trump in the White House, smiling, kiki and ha-ha, right? You think that guy really got over Trump? You really think that that guy has any power over Trump, any leverage over Trump? That he cucked Trump? Do you really believe that? Right? Nobody really believes that. He went to the White House like a hungry dog, right? He needs some food. Hands out, begging, right? Please don't defund us. Please don't send ICE. Right? That's essentially what that meeting was about. Let's keep it 100, right? So, with that being said, I want to react to this panel discussion here on ABC, as a Republican is going to give a reality check to some of the liberals on this panel about, again, how that meeting with Zoran and Trump actually went down.
Exactly that question to you, Nir. And Mamdani was very conciliatory as well, although apparently just a few minutes ago he said on NBC that he still thought the president was a despot and a fascist. So maybe that's breaking down a little bit. But what's your take on all of this?
You know, I feel like the greatest level of sadness for all the Republican ad makers who were spending weeks and maybe months plotting out the ads they were going to run against Democrats. All these people saying, oh, he's going to be this big weight on the Democratic Party.
The poster boy, right?
The poster boy for the midterms. Mike Johnson just last week said the whole victory was about Mamdani and that he's the new leader of House Democrats, even though that sounded kind of crazy. And what actually, Donald Trump just evaporated all of that. And any ad that any kid comes up, everyone can just show how much the president was very fond of Mamdani. And, I thought that it was a great accomplishment, actually, that he was able to maneuver this meeting. Mayor-elect Mamdani was able to maneuver this meeting, but also just a true sign how much the affordability message, which was really resonant for Democrats last week, is really just is front and center.
Yeah, so let me explain why President Trump and Zohran Mamdani being chummy, right, in the White House does not hinder Republicans from attacking Zohran Mamdani. Because, again, it's going to be about what he does, right? He hasn't done anything yet. He said a bunch of stuff, but remember, he hasn't done anything. It's one thing to say, okay, rhetoric is one thing, doing is another, right? We don't know what he's going to do. The president doesn't know what he's going to do. Nobody knows what he's going to do. Well, actually, I have a good clue about what he's going to do. He's not going to do much at all, really. I actually kind of know what he's going to do. He ain't going to really do that much just based off what he's doing right now, right? But the reality is this, right? Is that based off what he does, we're going to see what the results are, right? We're going to see what his rhetoric is, and that is going to determine how much of a target he will be for Republicans. Right now, the only thing we have is rhetoric. So, yes, he's an easy target rhetorically because he's an open socialist, but we got to see the results. If New York City becomes a dumpster fire, right, he starts defunding the police, which, by the way, he committed to not defunding the police. He also decided to keep the police commissioner as well, too, which, again, is another sign that he ain't going to really do that much, right? Because he doesn't – the last thing he wants is to destroy that city and then have the GOP point at him and say, listen, this is an example why these people shouldn't get elected. That's the last thing that he wants. So, again, the reality here is that depending on how he actually performs and what he does, we're going to see, right, in regards to whether or not the GOP is actually going to be able to use him as a prop to attack during the midterms. The meeting between the presidents doesn't mean anything. The president has met with a lot of people that he's turned around and attacked later, right? It happens. That's the reality of politics. It's about what is he going to do moving forward. We really don't know that much yet because he's not in office. You got to give it a chance. Let's see what he does, and then we go from there. Rhetorically speaking, yes, he's a far-left socialist. But in regards to how he actually governs, that remains to be seen.
And Reince, I want you to take all that on. The Republicans really are going, whoa, wait a minute, I guess we don't have Mamdani to push around anymore, make the poster boy. What was your take on what happened in the Oval Office? Think President Trump planned that, or he was just taken by Mamdani?
No, well, I guess maybe both. I thought it was classic Trump. I mean, this is like pure Trump, one-on-one. He is charming. He's very good with people one-on-one. But it's also the fact that, number one, a Trumpism is just because you're enemy doesn't mean I'm not going to do a deal with you. Nobody's ever a permanent enemy. He loves winning over
or a permanent
critics.
friend.
Or he loves winning over critics. But I thought it more or less, I kind of disagree. I think it eviscerated Mamdani more than Trump, because Trump supporters like myself, we know that Donald Trump will bring in enemies and charm them and get a deal done with them. But Mamdani is supposed to be pure. Mamdani is this guy who's this new found sensation, and there he was standing next to Donald Trump, completely charmed and out of his mind. And the second thing I'd say is that, as a reminder, I've said this for weeks, economic populism of the left in many ways sounds a lot like economic populism of the right. So I would have no doubt that they had a meeting and they talked a lot about those issues. Sticking it to billionaires, giving it back to the little guy is one of the most Trumpy things there is. So there could be some things that they have in common. And I do think the culture wars will come back, and maybe Mamdani will reignite that sometime down the road.
Susan?
Yeah, I think that Rice's previous here is pretty spot on, right? I think that Trump did eviscerate Mamdani just because of the fact that Mamdani felt the need to meet with the president in the first place. Mamdani is the one that requested the meeting with Trump, not the other way around, okay? So again, that tells you in and of itself, again, who needs who more, right? Mamdani needs Trump. So Mamdani is the guy that said that Trump is a fascist, that Trump is basically the worst thing ever, right? He's going to be Trump's worst nightmare. This is what he claimed. But yet, he's the one that went to Trump. Trump didn't go to him. Mondami went to Trump. So that's what people got to understand, right? And him just being in the same room and acknowledging that he needs the president is a defeat in and of itself. On top of all the other things that we know as well, too, about Mondami saying, hey, we shouldn't be primarying Hakeem Jeffries, right? Like, well, he doesn't know if he's going to be able to get Hochul on board with the, tax the rich stuff, right? Like, again, you're starting to kind of really see that this guy, he knows his position, right? And we saw this. I mean, this is normal, right? We saw with Eric Adams how weak the New York City mayor is, okay? We've seen that. So that's just the reality of the situation. Now, some of you guys may be asking, well, what does Trump get out of this? Well, it's a win-win for Trump, and I'm going to tell you why. If Trump can drag Zohran Mamdani to the right on certain issues, like, for example, on illegal immigration and on crime, then that's a win for Trump. Because Trump can say, hey, yeah, because of federal cooperation, we cleaned up the city. He's not going to do all the socialist stuff that he claims, right? All the tax stuff, that's going to be on the state, right? That's going to be on the Democrats at the state level. He doesn't have that much control over that. What he does have control over, again, crime, cooperating with the federal government on illegal immigration. Yeah, I mean, that is something that he has an option to work with the president on. If he doesn't want to work with the president on it, and New York City becomes a crime-ridden hellhole, or more of a crime-ridden hellhole than it already is, right? Then the administration can say, well, he chose not to work with us, right? And because he rejected us, he rejected our cooperation, based off that meeting, we were open about working with him and trying to crack down on crime, but he decided not to, so it's on him, right? Doesn't matter. It doesn't matter at the end of the day. He can win. President Trump can win if Mondami is successful on certain things that align with the administration, okay? Because we already know, again, on the tax stuff, on the socialist stuff, economic stuff, he ain't got really that much power. It's about what does he actually have power over, and that is where he actually needs to cooperate with the federal government on, right? Those things, okay? Zohran needs federal funding to deal with the issue of crime. He needs federal funding to deal with the issue of immigration. New York City and the federal government closely cooperate when it comes to those issues specifically.
I am so tired.
And President Trump holds all the cards, right? AKA the money, right? When it comes to those specific issues. So Trump has a lot of leverage over Zohran to pull Zohran to the right on those issues of where he otherwise would be, because again, the federal government controls the money, right? On those specific issues, Trump has a lot of power and control over that, okay? So Zohran needs Trump a lot on those issues. Again, that's the push and pull here that people got to understand. Trump understands that, hey, there are certain groups of my supporters that did support Zohran Mamdani. I know it sounds weird, but this is what they say. They say that some people that vote for AOC also voted for Trump. It is what it is. I think there's some truth to that, because Zohran is seen as a populist. Trump is seen as a populist. AOC is seen as a populist, just on different sides of the political spectrum. So there is going to be some overlap. So he can low-key kind of say, listen, we're all populist, right? We're all in the populist bucket, the anti-establishment bucket, right? But at the same time, if push comes to shove, if Mamdani doesn't play ball on certain issues where he actually should cooperate with the federal government on, right, then he can easily distance himself. Easily. It's easy. Right? He didn't get all the way in bed with Zohran like Hochul did, talking about, tax the rich, right? At the rallies, doing all this stuff. He didn't get all the way in bed with Zohran. So again, there's a difference. And I think Trump is playing this correctly. Give the man an opportunity. Let's see what actually happens. Let's see what he's willing to do and what he's not willing to do. But again, I think that this Republican here was correct in regards to his diagnosis of what happened. Yeah, Trump has eviscerated Zohran. Just the fact that Zohran felt the need to meet with the president